When you think of the biggest event of the 19th century, what comes to mind? You probably think of the American Civil War. Vast armies, shifting nations, history written in blood. That is the most important part of that era, right? Wrong. Richard Feynman said that 10,000 years from now, the Civil War will be seen as just a tiny regional ripple. It will be completely overshadowed by a quiet discovery made by one man in a room. Today, you are going to discover a beautiful hidden truth that will completely change how you see the world. Let me paint a picture for you. Do not imagine an old man with a grand beard carved in marble. Imagine a little boy in Scotland, standing awkwardly in a schoolyard. He does not fit in. He wears strange, clunky shoes and a ridiculous tunic his father designed. When he speaks, it is with a thick, rural accent that makes the city boys burst into laughter. School is an absolute nightmare for him. His very first tutor looked at him and decided he was slow. Dull-witted, so slow, in fact, that the tutor physically beat him, trying to knock some sense into a brain he thought was broken. Think about that for a second. The mind that would eventually decode the very fabric of our reality was beaten for being too stupid. Out in the courtyard, while the other children run and shout and play their games, James is off in a corner. He is completely isolated, but he is not crying. He is looking at the ground, using a stick to draw these bizarre, intricate geometric diagrams in the dirt. He is fascinated by how lines curve, how light bounces off a puddle, and how things twist and spin. He is just minding his own business, captivated by the silent rules of nature. But the other kids just see a weirdo. They point at him. Children can be brutally simple in their cruelty. They give him a nickname that sticks. Dafty, the fool, the village idiot. Every single day, they remind him that he does not belong. They looked at him and saw a joke. But they were not seeing what James was seeing. Behind those quiet eyes, the invisible machinery of the cosmos was already starting to turn. So how does that leap happen? How does a boy universally labeled a fool, a child bullied, beaten, and pushed into the lonely corner of the playground, grow up to hold the master key to the universe? Let me ask you to think about a compass in your hand. You have probably played with magnets as a kid. You feel how they snap together or push each other apart. And you have definitely felt electricity. You shuffle your feet on the carpet, reach for a metal doorknob, and snap, you get a little shock. Or you look up at a dark thunderstorm and see lightning crack across the entire sky. For a very long time, the smartest people in the world thought these were two completely different things. Electricity was put in one box. Magnetism was put in another box. They seemed to have absolutely nothing to do with each other. But James Clerk Maxwell did not look at the world in separate boxes. He wanted to understand the hidden machinery beneath it all. He took the brilliant physical experiments of Michael Faraday and translated them into pure, beautiful mathematics. And when he looked at the math, he discovered something that completely shattered the old way of thinking. He found out that if you take a magnet and just move it, if you just wiggle it around, it creates an electric field. And if you take a spark of electricity and make it move, it instantly wraps a magnetic field around itself. They are not separate forces at all. They are locked together in this invisible, unbreakable embrace. Think about how crazy that is. The invisible force pulling a compass needle toward the North Pole and the sudden, violent spark hitting your fingertip are the exact same thing. They just show up differently depending on how they are moving. Like someone once perfectly observed, electricity and magnetism are just two sides of the same coin. This was the second greatest unification in the entire history of physics, right after Isaac Newton figured out that an apple falling from a branch and the moon orbiting the Earth were pulled by the exact same gravity. Maxwell took electricity and magnetism and fused them into one single, unified force called electromagnetism. But here is where things get really weird. Here is the question that changed everything. If a changing electric field creates a magnetic field, and a changing magnetic field creates an electric field, what happens if they start feeding off each other? What happens if they start chasing each other out into the empty void of space? Maxwell sat down with his equations and asked a simple question. If an electric field creates a magnetic field, and that magnetic field creates a new electric field, how fast does this chain reaction travel through empty space? He ran the numbers. The math gave him a very specific speed. About 300,000 kilometers per second. Now stop and think about that. Maxwell stared at that number. He knew that number. Other scientists had recently measured the speed of light. The numbers matched perfectly. It was not a coincidence. It was a revelation. Maxwell realized something that shattered our entire understanding of reality. Think about the sunlight warming your face in the morning. Think about the glow of your phone screen or a candle burning in a dark room. Most people think light is just light. It just is. Wrong. Light is electricity and magnetism doing a cosmic dance. It is an invisible wave of electric and magnetic fields wiggling and jiggling, perfectly choreographed, flying through the universe. When you look at a rainbow, you are not just seeing colors. You are seeing electromagnetic waves at different sizes crashing into your eyes. Every star in the night sky is just a distant engine violently shaking its atoms, sending ripples of magnetic and electric fields across billions of light years. And when those wiggling fields finally hit the back of your eye, your brain translates that dance into what you call light. Everything you see, everything that illuminates our universe, is just the exact same force that shocks your finger on a doorknob and pulls a compass needle north. But if light is just an electromagnetic wave, a specific kind of wiggle, that leads to a very strange question. What happens if the wave wiggles faster? Or what if it wiggles slower? Maxwell looked at his math and realized something that sounds like pure magic. The light we can actually see with our human eyes, the reds and the blues and the greens, is just a tiny, tiny sliver of reality. It is just one single octave on a piano keyboard that stretches out to infinity in both directions. His equations screamed that there had to be other waves out there. Entire oceans of invisible light are crashing through the room you are sitting in right now. In 1865, decades before anyone had the tools to actually find them, Maxwell predicted an entire hidden universe. He did not build a giant telescope. He did not run physical experiments to catch these waves. He saw them using pure thought. Think about your life right now. You are probably watching this video using a Wi-Fi connection. An invisible signal is flying through the air, through the walls, and right into your phone. Later, you might put some food into a microwave, press a button, and watch it get hot. If you break your arm, a doctor will use an X-ray to look right through your flesh. You turn on the radio in your car and suddenly hear music. Wi-Fi, microwaves, X-rays, radio signals, they all seem like completely different things, right? They seem like totally separate technologies invented by different people. Wrong. They are the exact same thing. They are all just electromagnetic waves wiggling at different speeds. They are just invisible colors. Every single one of those modern miracles, the invisible threads that hold our entire modern civilization together, was pulled out of the empty air by the mathematics of the boy they used to call a fool. When you picture the ultimate genius, who do you see? You probably picture Albert Einstein. The wild white hair, the chalkboard full of crazy symbols, the absolute master of the universe. We look at him and think he built the towering castle of modern physics completely on his own. But he did not. If you had walked into Einstein's private study, you would not have found a giant portrait of himself, or even of Isaac Newton. Framed right there on his wall was a picture of James Clerk Maxwell. Einstein famously said he did not stand on the shoulders of Newton. He stood directly on the shoulders of Maxwell. Why? Because Maxwell took this massive, chaotic universe of shocking doorknobs, invisible pulling magnets, and glowing sunlight, and he distilled it down into just 4 equations. 4 simple lines of math. You could easily print them on a coffee mug. You could write them on a tiny cocktail napkin. But those 4 little lines are the actual DNA of our modern civilization. And hidden inside those 4 equations was a ticking time bomb that would change reality forever. Maxwell's math said that light must always travel at one exact speed through the empty void. It never slows down. It never speeds up. The universe has a strict speed limit built right into its invisible fabric. When a young Albert Einstein stared at Maxwell's perfectly balanced equations, he realized something terrifying and beautiful. If the speed of light never changes, no matter how fast you are moving, then time and space themselves have to bend. They have to stretch and warp to make the math work. Einstein's whole theory of relativity, the bending of time, and the curving of space, all of it was just the inevitable echo of Maxwell's work. The deepest secrets of the cosmos were quietly waiting right there, hidden inside the brilliant mind of the little boy they used to call a fool. But here is the most heartbreaking part of this entire story. James Clerk Maxwell, the man who handed us the keys to the modern universe, never got to see what he unlocked. He drew the absolute blueprints for the most magnificent castle in human history, but he died before he could ever walk through its front doors. While he was still in the absolute prime of his life, at just 48 years old, Maxwell fell deeply ill. It was stomach cancer. The brilliant, quiet fire in his mind was slowly extinguished. And when he passed away, the world barely even noticed. His equations were considered too difficult, too weird, and too abstract. Most scientists at the time did not even believe his invisible waves of light were real. They just thought it was a neat mathematical trick, nothing more. He died thinking his greatest discovery might just be ignored and left in a drawer. He never saw a radio. He never saw a television. He never knew about microwaves or the wireless signals that connect every single human being on the planet right now. He never knew that his 4 little lines of math would become the engine of the entire future. But the universe has a very strange, almost poetic sense of timing. Maxwell took his final breath in the winter of 1879. Just a few months later, in a quiet little town in Germany, a baby was born. A baby who would eventually pick up the exact equations Maxwell left him behind in the dirt and use them to completely tear down our understanding of space and time. That baby was Albert Einstein. It is almost as if the cosmos knew that the relay race was not over. The baton was simply falling from the hand of one giant into the crib of another. Maxwell spent his life laying down the invisible tracks of reality, and he trusted that eventually, someone else would come along and know exactly how to ride them. So, the next time you pull your phone out of your pocket to send a text message, or when you stand outside and feel the morning sun warming your skin, I want you to stop and think about what is actually happening. You are not just using a piece of modern technology or standing in the daylight. You are swimming in an infinite ocean of invisible waves. You are feeling the exact same cosmic machinery that a lonely, bullied little boy in Scotland saw perfectly in his mind before anyone else even knew to look for it. Every time you flip a light switch, every time a magnet clicks against your refrigerator, you are participating in a grand, unified dance. Electricity, magnetism, light, X-rays, and radio waves. They are all just different notes in the exact same symphony, written in just 4 simple lines of math. It makes you realize how deeply connected everything is, and it makes you wonder how many other invisible realities are sitting right in front of us, just waiting for someone to finally see them. Maxwell showed us how this invisible light travels through the void. He gave us the ultimate speed limit of the universe. And Einstein took that speed limit and proved that space and time themselves must bend and stretch around it to make the math work. But that brings up a rather unsettling question. If space is bending, if empty space can be stretched and warped by gravity like a piece of heavy rubber, what exactly is space? How can absolute nothingness have a shape? How can the empty void be bent? That is a different story. I will leave you something to imagine.